Hi, it's Joy, and today I'm going to be watching House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. Who could that be? I'm so excited to jump back in. I've loved the first 3 episodes of this show. I love being back in Westeros, and I love a good fantasy, and this is a brilliant fantasy. Reminder that you can find the unedited version of this reaction on my Patreon, and let's go. Still wears our uncle's necklace.
Half a century ago, Princess.
Yes, it was.
Oof.
Next.
She's not exactly... Again, I don't necessarily blame her, but she's not exactly very politically minded to play the Game of Thrones, which could be dangerous for her. You need to be a bit more respectful to people, and here comes a child.
Your day shall be easy, and night safe, under my protection.
Bless him.
Protection? The princess has a dragon, you craven.
Lord.
Happily row myself back to King's Landing if I brought an end to this ridiculous pageant.
Yeah. Fuck! Yeah. Just because he's little doesn't mean he's not a good fighter, or at least a cunning fighter. Her uncle. What a dick move. He is really a dick. And that is your uncle. Stop looking so excited unless it's in a like familial way. A day of surprising visitors, it would seem. Tuck. What's his move here? Prove to your big brother that you were worthy after all? Beaten messengers and...
But I know that there is only one true king, your grace.
He's playing the game well. Making a big show, making a show of his obedience. He's a dangerous player.
My crown...
I mean, they do love each other, strange as his family is.
The realm owes you a great debt, brother.
Even though you did it illegally.
Come.
And assault messengers who bring you good news. He's not a stable man, and I'm frightened for the impact he could have.
He hasn't yet seen the new tapestries gifted to you by Norvis and Quahor.
Would you like to see the tapestry?
She's trying. You've made no attempt to include Alicent in your family. You married her for your own sick reasons, and even though she's your daughter's age, men. When are we going to get the time jump? I'm kind of scared. I mean, I'm not actually that scared, because I'm sure the new actress is going to be fantastic. I mean, I've seen Emily Carey in lots of things, so I love her portrayal of Alicent, and Millie Alcott's been amazing. And I know Olivia Cook as well. I love her as an actress, so I know they're going to be amazing. I can't remember the name of the new Rhaenyra right now. My brain fog, CFS, very sorry. But I'm sure they're going to do amazingly. But I kind of want somehow to have like parallel timelines so we can get like both actresses. She's trying to be your friend still.
How romantic it must be to get imprisoned in a castle and me to squeeze out to heirs.
It's her life. Maybe they are actually a little bit close still. This actually, I'm really happy that they're not completely at odds with each other, because I'm sure it's going to come. Makes sense. Ultimately, her sons are going to be older. They're going to be wanting the throne. She's going to want, like, there's going to be a mess, and I'm sure that there'll be a division. But I'm actually glad that in this episode, they seem a little bit closer. They're able to talk to each other. You know, I didn't even think of, like, I was kind of, like, wondering why she made the comment about seeing the gallery, but I realised in a weird way she was actually stepping up into kind of protecting Alicent a little bit by saying, well, actually, I'm interested in that thing you just suggested that no one else was, which mirrors the way Alicent was like, oh, actually, I think I can't exactly remember, the princess the best suited for the throne. You know, kind of the social niceties of it. I felt like it was always a little piece of throne. And so this moment where she said about being stuck in prison in a palace and forced to pump out heirs, and then immediately like, oh yeah, that is your life. I think as they get older and there's more time passes and as the pain of the marriage is less fresh, Rhaenyra is seeing it through clearer eyes. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be best friends forever, but this has been a nice conversation to see so far.
I've missed you too.
Oh, thank goodness. No, this is going to make them being at odds even more painful, but that might be one of my favourite scenes in the whole show. The fact that see past it. Stay away from your niece. She's your niece. I hate with a stick.
I thought you particularly comfortable.
You've matured yourself these last 4 years, Princess.
Yeah, she's less of a child now, but she's still your
You're used
niece.
to the attention.
Father seems content to sell me off to whichever lord has the biggest castle.
Gave you a choice, that's more than some. I'm sure your wife is not best pleased with being forced to marry you either. Only I could just think this was a wholesome uncle-niece relationship.
We would have to seek our own marriage pact.
She's the only candidate. At least she has a seat at the council table now and it's not just a cupbearer. I mean, I guess I don't think he means her any harm. I think he actually means some quite creepy things. To the side of the world she's never experienced before. What a wonderful part of town you brought her to! Welcome to the real world. Alicent, this poor girl. I feel like right now I am just wanting to get her out of this fucking situation, and yet she's trapped. And trying to make the best of it. Team, protect this child. And protect Rhaenyra from her uncle. This is the way the real world sees your family. Admittedly, you know, most of these people, the monarchy does nothing to help.
But many of the small folk are like to believe that as a male, Daemon should be the heir.
It is true.
Their wants are of no consequence.
You think that now? Is this part of his plan that, like, if we unite, we'll be the greatest heir? Alicent is fully trapped in this. And, like, Rhaenyra is running from this future, but the future in which, in the dynamic, she is princess and presumed heir to the throne, declared heir to the throne, she'd have a lot more power than the average girl does. What could Alicent have said when this creepy old man asked to marry her?
Who knows when our next taste freedom?
It's so creepy. I spend this whole show with a stick, and I'm waving it at these creepy men to stay away from these children. The stick is out.
King has requested your presence.
He won't even come to her bedchamber. Yes, this is definitely a place I would bring my niece to. I mean, again, I don't necessarily think it is wrong for her to see more of the world, but this is maybe a little bit of an extreme introduction from what she's used to. This poor girl. I have my stick, and I'm fucking whacking that bitch with it. So many of these loveless marriages, though, is akin to rape every night. Because the woman cannot say no. Entire marriages with sexual assaults. Alicent's is one of them. And that is why I support her fully. This is definitely not a place you bring your teenage niece. The stick is out and I'm whacking him with it. You're her uncle. I know I have to brace myself for this, but it's your her uncle. You're her uncle. Alicent. It's your uncle. It's your niece. You're in public. So creepy. And like, I maybe could believe he might actually like her, I don't know, in a creepy fucking incestuous way. But, you know, I also think he sees a path to the throne with her. It's your niece. It's your niece. I have my stick out. I need a heavier stick. I knew he had intentions like this the minute he brought her out of the palace. Rhaenyra is a child. And I know Targaryens like the incest, keep those bloodlines pure, but it's creepy as fuck. I mean, at least A, it's not like she's saying no, or she seems quite into it. It's still fucking weird. What a bitch he is.
Daemon?
You take your teenage niece to a brothel, you start having your way with her, and then you stop? Oof. That's the spy, right? Alicent. She is trapped in a marriage of political advancement that her father orchestrated when she was a child to a man old enough to be her father, or in these times her grandfather, because if you're pumping out kids when you're in your early 20s, you can be quite young when you become a grandparent. And he doesn't respect her. He respects her when they're in private, but even little things like in that conversation with Daemon, where he just made it so clear that, like, oh, you're not really one of us. You don't really get it. You're just because I wanted someone to sleep with who was kind to me. Team protect Alicent at all costs. Did you not know the way back to the secret palace? Yeah. You've been guarding an empty door for hours. Rhaenyra, this could be his job and his head. You're acting a child. He could be murdered for this. I know he's very pretty, but he could still die for this. He would literally be executed for this. This is very Targaryen of you. Very privileged noble. I take what I want, and in any other time I would respect this, but it's his life we're playing with. And again, like, there is a weird power dynamic here. Like, I do think he could very easily just say no and leave. But what if, like, there is a dynamic where, like, she is the princess he cannot say no to? You know, there are some weird dynamics here. Again, I do not think Rhaenyra is being rapist right now. I'm not saying that. But there are odd dynamics here. And if they were to get found out, like if her father were to decide he'd insist on coming to see her, or if someone were to walk past and notice there wasn't a guard outside her door, they could be found out. And at best, he would be sent to the wall. You know, castrated and sent to the wall. Like, they're playing with fire here. In a very selfish Targaryen way. I think he likes her too, because she's a very lovely girl and he's a very handsome boy. Well, no. Your life's a little different from Alicent's. I do think he wants this. But, you know, has she considered the power dynamic at play, is all I mean. It's the cloak that symbolises an oath he made of celibacy, right? Or at least not marrying. And of protecting the royal family. I don't entirely think that this would be considered that. Very symbolic right now. You are so going to get executed if they find out about this. It's all I can think. The risk. In any other universe, totally cool with her embracing her freedoms. Her life is very different from Alicent's. I just hope this doesn't have any consequences for Kristen. Oh, how to be a sad little rich boy.
Come.
I'm a man who sleeps with my daughter against her will every night because I arranged it that way. My daughter went to a brothel with her uncle. This man deserves a whack with a fucking stick too.
What behaviors?
And a man and a woman lust after each other very much.
Or must I
Now speak it plainly.
You do it with his daughter every night. Because he arranged that.
Daemon and Rhaenyra.
This is a lie.
Is this when the seeds of Alicent potentially having rage towards Rhaenyra are gonna start? Because, you know, all that she has to suffer and all of the, like, iced outness that she went through. And Rhaenyra just does whatever the fuck she wants. It's very different. Again, Rhaenyra is not the one for Alicent to blame in that situation, but the world often pits women against each other.
Do you wish to have your blood on the Iron Throne so badly that you are willing to destroy mine own?
He's actually warning you right now. He could have done this in front of the council and disgraced Rhaenyra potentially forever.
Right.
But he's also a man whose pride will not take well to his views. He is playing the Game of Thrones as best he can. You gonna talk to your wife, who you chose to marry? Yeah, you're trapped in this hell and Rhaenyra does whatever she wants. The resentment is gonna be flipping the other way too. Is she concerned for her at this point, or just kind of woman to woman? Is she angry that she's doing whatever the fuck she pleases? This dynamic is endlessly interesting and tragic.
What happened last night? Were you with your uncle?
Her scared voice is back. Hurts her because she is so trapped in an opposite life.
It's a vile accusation.
They were so close earlier in the episode, and here comes the severing.
Customs. Alicent, your Grace, sister, you must know I would never. You are accusing me of slanders. You overheard?
Yes, she heard it very
I
clearly.
want to help you, Rhaenyra.
She's upset and a mess, and this could destroy you if it were believed. And she's angry at you because her life is the opposite and you have every freedom.
I was only a spectator. I didn't do anything.
It's so opposite to the life Alicent is trapped in.
Must I truly refute that?
I mean, technically yes, because we know you were gonna.
Daemon never touched me. I swear this to you, upon the memory of my mother.
She's lying! And I know why she's lying.
I regret it.
Rhaenyra is playing a dangerous game. Alicent and Rhaenyra still care about each other. There's still, in that scene, you could really see the different strains of their positions, and the odd dynamic they have was still very much at play. And I think Alicent was trying to be a good friend while also just raging that she is trapped in this hell that everyone thinks is so shiny and bright. And sure, there are nice parts to it. I would rather be there than like on the streets. But, you know, she's trapped and struggling, and yet her friend is just going out and doing whatever she wants, and risking her reputation in such a blithe way. And if Alicent were to find out down the line, they do marry. Again, I don't know specifics. I just feel like in passing, I've heard that Daemon and Rhaenyra marry. I know Targaryens and their incest. They have their queer customs, as she put it. And she swore it on her mother's life. Is that gonna... I don't know. You can see the seeds for the real true betrayal coming, but I'm so thankful that they didn't have it simply be the marriage to the father, because like Alicent was nowhere near to blame to that. So this dynamic is so rich and interesting, and I just want to explore it. I would be cool if we just ignored everybody else and just focused on these two women and just their dynamic. I'm so into it.
My daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You defiled her.
Not even listening to him. I mean, he did.
Still you say nothing.
You sleep with her best friend every night.
Better a first experience be with me than some whore.
You have ruined her.
Wed her to me.
But there he goes. There's the
I felt
game
like
plan.
You said I could have anything. I want Rhaenyra.
She's your niece.
Years and wed her in the... And we will return the House of the Dragon to its proper glory.
Fuck.
It's not my daughter you lust for, is it?
Nope.
It's my throne.
A bit of both, unfortunately.
As you wish, brother.
Daemon is playing the long game. He terrifies me. And I wish to whack these men with sticks to keep them away from these children.
How often does he speak the pure truth?
Ending
How does
Rhaenyra.
confessing to such things serve him?
She's believing Rhaenyra and protecting her right now.
She swore to me that she remains a maiden. And I believe her.
I mean, she definitely lied there. Alicent is protecting Rhaenyra. And it makes me, this dynamic is not gonna last, and I hate that so much. I mean, all this nonsense about purity is ridiculous. I'm in no way supporting it, and I support her lying. I just hate that she had to lie to Alicent. But Alicent would never have understood, given her own circumstances as well.
It is larger than you. And your desires.
You are still in trouble here, child.
The truth does not matter, Rhaenyra. Only perception.
It is
You have
unfortunately true.
Now we must both... Your courtship is at an end. You will wed Selena Velaryon. And you will do so without protest.
And that is the way it works, unfortunately. I hate
Your
it.
wedding to
I wish
Selena
we could do
Velaryon
anything
will
else.
unite the two most powerful houses in the realm.
But as Alicent has proven, women have no say in this time.
How can that be accomplished with your most trusted advisor so self-interested?
Every lord and lady that calls for an audience with me.
Self
Every man on my
interested.
small council and all council.
It's part of the Game of Thrones. You have to know what the people want. So A, you can tantalize them, tease them with, well, maybe if you do this thing for me, you might get what you want, and then just keep moving it around, give them just enough to keep them going. And somebody who you know what he wants is far easier to trust when you know everything Otto Hightower does is ultimately to get his grandson on the throne, then you know what his motives are, whereas in New Hand, you might not know what he's after.
But you must first do yours as king.
Oh, fuck. Fuck. I don't like Otto Hightower. He can jump into the sea for all I care. I want to whack him with my stick. So if he's going to have the hand chip removed, I love it. I love it a lot. But it is a bit like Alicent stood up for her and she got her father dismissed. But also, yes, this man sold his daughter to an old man.
How long did it take you to choose yourself over your king?
Fuck.
Your Grace.
Every single person here schemes.
Recover from Emma's death. She was a calculated distraction.
She was a child.
I only now realize you were a faithful servant, Otto.
The arrogance of kings. I mean, admittedly, do not like Otto, him being kicked off being hand of a king. I support. But he is just, technically, maybe he had spies on Rhaenyra, but he literally just told them the truth of what she was up to. Fuck. Who's the next hand going to be? And what is Otto's next move going to be? He did not calculate for Rhaenyra in the Game of Thrones, that she strikes back.
Care in its preparation.
Something to prevent pregnancy?
From the king.
Yep.
It will rid you of any unwanted
Consequences. Really, you should go to him and be like, how dare you assume it? I told you I am pure. Here comes different, like, political shenanigans going on. Alicent and Rhaenyra remain my favourite part of this show. The dynamic between them, the exploration of how they go from just being like best friends, sisters, closer than anything, the kind of wedge that is put between them when she is married to his father, to now. I think one of my favourite things with this episode is we saw that they were kind of beginning to get a little bit of that closeness back. I don't think they would ever be the way they were, because they're growing up and they live in the real world of Westeros and they're both now power players. But I think just seeing the fact that they were able to have that moment where Rhaenyra sort of spoke up a little bit in Alicent's defence when the king was just talking over her. And then when she's mentioned, you know, I don't want to be trapped in a castle being forced to produce heirs. And then Alicent's like, welcome to my life. And, you know, Rhaenyra took her hand and was like, yeah, I think in that moment you really see that Rhaenyra understands Alicent is not the bad party in all of this. Alicent did not initiate this wedding willingly. She had no choice. Most people do not have the same choices that Rhaenyra has, and yes, she's trying to make the most of it. Yes, she's trying to build up a companionship with the king to be comfortable, which is what most women could desperately hope for in these kind of situations, is to be comfortable with him. But as we saw, the duty of a marriage, I mean, she's produced 2 children for him. He could be like, okay, cool, you're a child, I won't come to your, sorry, you don't have to come to my bedchamber anymore. But no, not this king. Disgusting. Paedophile stick. So I really liked that dynamic, and even that, I think when she confronted her about the night with Daemon, I think you could definitely see some of Alicent's anger, and I think it wasn't even necessarily anger placed at Rhaenyra. In the same way that Rhaenyra's anger in previous episodes wasn't necessarily placed at Alicent, it's just kind of that's the only outlet you have in a weird way, is the sense that Rhaenyra has these choices, that Rhaenyra, this person who is her friend, her sister who's close to her, is able to go into town and go to a brothel and maybe do something, maybe not. But regardless, she has this freedom that being princess gives her and being Targaryen gives her. That being just an ordinary court, being who she is and now becoming queen, any such freedoms are gone. And I do think there will be some resentment towards Rhaenyra for that freedom. And again, it's not Rhaenyra's fault that Alicent doesn't have it, but it's completely human. Just like Rhaenyra being resentful of Alicent being married to the king was, again, not Alicent's fault, but completely understandable. And I think the key moment in a lot of ways was the strength of Rhaenyra's denial and her swearing on her mother's life that he didn't touch me. And that is one of the first times you've really seen her lie to Alicent. Now, I don't necessarily actually fault Rhaenyra for this, because had she been like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure with Daemon she didn't go all the way, but they did stuff. And then she was frustrated, and so she with Christian Cole. But I feel like, you know, she couldn't really have told the truth to Alicent, because Alicent would not understand, both with the upbringing all girls have in this time, in their social standing, and with the kind of resentment between their differing social statuses that they have and the different amounts of freedom. And I think it's this moment where, yes, ultimately Alicent believed her, they were able to kind of get through this, she spoke up for her to the king, which I think she would have done anyway. I think we're seeing more and more fractures. The first fracture in this relationship was the marriage. That if that was all it was, it probably could have got through it. But now we're having this difference in their lives. If Rhaenyra ultimately, I mean, okay, it seems like she's going to marry the Sea Snake's son, but I feel like she eventually marries Daemon. I don't know, maybe she gets 2 husbands. The more freedoms Rhaenyra have that are different to what normal women have, the more nights Alicent is forced to endure the king's presence, the more resentful she will get, and I don't think you can blame her for that. I hope she doesn't lose herself to that kind of dark resentment, because then she will no longer be a character I support. But right now, Alicent Hightower has just, my heart is shattered, and her father deserves every bad thing coming his way because he orchestrated this. I know the king is finally able to be like, oh, I got played. I just hope he doesn't take that out on Alicent at all. I hope he doesn't treat her any differently or any more harshly, because she was a pawn in all of this and in her father's games. So in the next episode, I'm kind of concerned about how that dynamic might be. And I have no idea how long it is until the time jump. Maybe the halfway point, like next episode. Though I kind of hope we still get flashbacks in the time jump. So very much I'm stressed, sad and worried for Alicent. I think right now she is the most hard done by character on this show. And I have a feeling she's going to learn to fight back or to wield her political power. And particularly if her sons are ever threatened. I know George R.R. Martin often bases things on history, and there are various times in history that queens or queen mothers have kind of been viewed as the villain, when really all they were trying to do was get their son their rightful claim to the throne. So I don't know, we'll see what happens there. But I like to see that we haven't totally lost the good relationship between Rhaenyra and Alicent, because I think it was too quick for it to just completely go, and I think it's going to make it even more tragic when they do end up on opposing sides, which kind of feels inevitable at this point. Also, Hightower, I don't think is going to take this line down. I mean, I do. I don't think he's going to raise an army and storm King's Landing by any means. But he's not done. He's not going to give up on his scheming and his claims. And if anything, he has this supposed rumour about the princess. Admittedly, if it got spread, they'd probably know where it came from. But, you know, he's not going to stop campaigning for his grandsons to be on the throne. I actually think having a hand of the king when you know exactly what his ulterior motive is far more useful to you, because you know, okay, this thing he's just suggested to me, could it put his grandson on the throne? No, it's about trade, but probably fine. You know, I think, like, because he wanted ultimately his grandson on the throne, he was quite loyal in other ways. So it could have been a big mistake setting him free and making him a loose cannon who might go and do other things. Now, Rhaenyra in this episode had a lesson in the real world. Now, obviously, I don't think she made very good choices in this episode. Now, as a modern person in our world, I'm like, you go, Rhaenyra, I support you. And I'm not actually against her choices in this episode, I think. But I do think she risked a lot and didn't really think about the consequences until maybe that moment at the end when she was looking at that teacup. Because going into the city, for one thing, is a dangerous thing. Now, I don't think that within itself was the most dangerous risk, but going with Daemon, who you know is kind of at odds but not with your father, is a risk. Going into the brothel and not being like, let's leave. Because again, it shouldn't be the case, but it is the case, that a woman's purity is what matters, and before marriage, and you've got to be a maid, and all that nonsense, and it is nonsense, and as a modern audience we know it's nonsense, and if you're really that concerned that your offspring isn't going to be yours, then just make sure the woman was pure for like 2 months before you marry her. Again, it's a load of nonsense. But it's the nonsense their world lives by, and she wants to be queen. She saw just how precarious the situation is, how many of the common people think because she's a woman she'll be feeble and weak. Adding rumours that she sleeps with her uncle, or just sleeps around, isn't going to help win the people. It shouldn't matter, it shouldn't be a thing she has to worry about, but it is in the world they live in, and I think this is yet another example of us seeing that Rhaenyra isn't yet the most astute player of the Game of Thrones. I feel like being the princess and the crown princess for so long, being the only heir, it's almost like she kind of expects, my father's named me king, so I'm going to be set. And it doesn't work that way in the real world. You have to give up appearances. Even some of those lords she was dismissing at the beginning, the way she was, and like laughing at them, again, it's monarchs do it, but when your position is precarious, you can't necessarily afford to make enemies. You need to be building up friendships. And you don't even need to do it to the, like, Littlefinger Otto Hightower level of sneakily. You can do it in a much more kind of, just keeping people, you know, just, I'm not being horrible to them, I'm not being like your best friend and promising them things. You can just kind of keep a more level ground until you get there. But I do think in this episode, I do think they have a creepy uncle-niece lust for each other, and I'm gonna say he is the older one in this relationship, and the uncle, he is the one who took her to a brothel and brought it to the next level, and then who initiated the coupling. He's just whacking with that stick. I do not like Daemon. As a character, Daemon Targaryen is fascinating and I'm very much enjoying him. So when I say I don't like him, I'm not saying like, get him off this show. Although I do think Westeros should be a much more peaceful place if he was gone. I love him as a character. I love Matt Smith. I think this is he's a brilliant character. But he is a terrible person. And I do think while he has some creepy lust for Rhaenyra, we even had in the first episode his mistress saying to him, I could find you a whore with white hair, as though like that would be a thing that would get him on. There are definitely weird Targaryen weirdnesses, but uncles looking at the nieces like that, I mean, that was one of the many things that was said about Richard III to sully his reputation, and we still to this day don't know whether it was true or not. Was there were people that thought he wanted to marry his niece because she also had a claim to the throne and that would make his claim more secure, very similar to this. Now, he didn't, and he denied it, but it was one of the things that people were scandalised by. I mean, cousins can marry, but uncles and nieces, I guess it happened, but it's a little close. In royal families, cousins marry frequently. Probably there are examples beyond the one I mentioned where there actually were uncles and nieces married, but it's fucking creepy and weird. And I do not blame Viserys for being very angry at him, especially when Daemon knows the world they live in. And yes, it is a ridiculous double standard, but unless you're going to dedicate your life to changing the double standard for men and women, which isn't going to happen in a medieval-esque fantasy, Rhaenyra made some very dumb decisions. Now, I think her dumbest decision of all was inviting Sir Criston Cole into her bedchamber, because any servant could have said, well, yeah, the princess's room was unguarded. The king could have heard the rumour about her business in town and come straight to her door that night. And at the end of the day, if they ever find out she was with Criston Cole, and I kind of feel like maybe it could be an ongoing shenanigan, she will not suffer the consequences. Her father will most likely, potentially she could be disowned, but she's still a princess. And her father has made it clear that he's named her the heir. It'd be embarrassing for him to have to be like, yeah, my daughter's a slut. So, obviously I don't actually think she is, but by the time period, Criston would be the one who would suffer. He would be the one who would either be executed, he would be castrated, at the very best, he'd be shipped off to the wall for the rest of his life. So I think while they were, I do believe, just two young people who quite fancy each other and wanted to have some fun, and I don't have anything against that. I think she was playing with fire without her being, and she's immune to flame and doesn't care that he isn't. Plus there is the weird power dynamic where what if like he felt like he couldn't say no to her. I know that I don't think he did, I don't think that was the dynamic, but she didn't check. So yeah, basically Rhaenyra fucked up and got away with it. And was even able to use some of her political power to get rid of an enemy, to get rid of Otto Hightower. I don't think she's ever forgiven him for arranging for his daughter to replace her mother. I wonder, I feel like potentially Daemon treating her like an adult and showing her the real world might help mature her in a weird way, or help her. She needs to learn how to play the Game of Thrones. She's getting better at it. The move against Hightower was masterful. It shows you that she's got it in her and she's going to be a formidable opponent. But she definitely made some mistakes in this episode while also claiming her independence. So I'm torn between being like, yes, Rhaenyra, and being like, Rhaenyra, because it's not her life on the line in some of these situations, and her position as heir is precarious, and she should be building that up, not risking it. So I'm worried about my girls, but I support them both. I want them to be happy, and I say that knowing that they never will be. Viserys is a dirty old man, and he can fuck off. Like, I don't like Otto, and I'm so thrilled he got demoted. Like, hilarious, brilliant, 10 out of 10. But at the same time, for what? Because he wants his grandson to... Yeah, of course he does. Everyone would want that. Like, if you had married the sea snake's daughter, that child, and waited 2 years before you started pumping out heirs on her, the sea snake would be like, you know, my grandchild there. I don't know why he sounds like that. My grandchild would be a brilliant king/queen, wouldn't they? You know, he would be doing the exact same thing. Anybody you marry, that's going to happen. And it definitely seemed like it was weirdly placating Rhaenyra, and also he's embarrassed by this whole situation and wants anybody gone who knows of it. He's worried about Alicent. And her father sending her the tea, that is saying, I do not believe you for a second. I know what Targaryens are like. I know my brother was not lying to me. I'm going to pretend he was, because that way it's politically better for all of us. But I know, and it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic between them going forwards. Daemon fucked up, but I also think he couldn't care less, because one day Viserys will die. Rhaenyra will either be queen, be like crowned queen, and there'll be shenanigans with factions supporting Aegon or whatever, or they will be like, we want Aegon, not you, like happened with Matilda in history. And then either way, Daemon can rush to her side and be like, would you like to make this official? And then he thinks he's already done his job in getting her on side. I feel like that is kind of his angle, that even if it doesn't happen in Viserys' lifetime, it will happen, and he will get the throne one way or another. So a lot of political maneuverings, a lot of character maneuverings. It's like, I'm not always a big intrigue, like shows that are all about like intrigue and stuff sometimes can get frustrating, but I think with this one, it's the richness of the world and the characters. It feels like I'm watching a medieval history play out, because I am, and I love it so much. And I just would like to live in an alternate universe where Alicent and Rhaenyra get to ride away on a dragon and go away from this place with all these creepy men. That's where my head is at right now. A reminder that you can find the unedited version of this reaction on my Patreon, and thank you so much for watching.